What's going on, everybody? This is Onion Rings. Today I'm going to explain how you should play the Enhancement Shaman in World of Warcraft expansion Legion. I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with my Shaman enough to spread my tips and tactics or whatever and help other people play it. So if you play World of Warcraft and you find the Enhancement Shaman difficult, or maybe you're just doing something different, this could help you get a nice good rotation and do a lot of damage. So I'm going to get right into it. First, we're going to begin with the most important thing, is the talents. Well, obviously the most important thing is obviously your spells, but one of the spells one of the talents we're choosing is going to replace one of your spells, so there's no point getting into the spells just yet. I'm going to get to the talents first. And I'm going to discuss a little bit about them. I'm not just going to tell you what to pick. I'm going to discuss why you should pick it, why you should not pick some of the others, so that way you're not confused as to why I'm picking certain things. So for level 15, most people go for Windsong because it does a nice amount of damage and it increases your haste for 35% for 20 seconds, which is pretty good, but it's not the best. It's actually the worst out of the first three. Hot Hands was also a good choice that I went with for a while. Melee attacks with Flame Tongue active have a chance to make your next Lava Lash cost no Maelstrom and do 100% increased damage. So a free Lava Lash that does double damage. Sounds good, right? Actually, no. It's not as good as you'd think. It is good, I'm not gonna lie, but it's not as good as the next one. Boulder Fist slams your target with the power of stone, dealing 42,000. This number will vary. I am only level 105, so I am not fully geared yet. It's based on your gear. The better your gear, the higher level you are, the more damage it will do. Keep that in mind. I should have waited till 110 to make this guide, but there's no point because I have everything I'm going to get besides gear and level. So the numbers will be different, but that's it. I have all the spells, all the talents, so this guide will be perfect. Boulder Fist does 42,000 damage and enhances your weapons for 10 seconds, increasing your critical strike chance by 5% and all damage you deal by 5%, and generates 25 Maelstrom. And it has 2 charges and recharges in 4.67 seconds based on your haste. The higher your haste, the faster it recharges. Basically, the reason I like this so much is if you pay attention to the top right corner, there's the buff. Watch how long it takes to expire. Bam, I have my charge back. By the time it expires, you can have your charge back already, so you can essentially always have this 5% crit chance and 5% damage almost all the time. And look how much damage it does. It does about the same amount of damage as a non-critting Storm Strike or a non-critting Lava Lash. That was a crit, but you get my idea. There, 42,000 and Boulder Fist does 42. So it does around the same exact damage, but it recharges like way faster, and it generates a massive amount of Maelstrom. This is like my main Maelstrom generator. Now, some of you may disagree with me and say that I shouldn't use Boulder Fist, but why not? I mean, you've already seen the amount of benefits you get from it are amazing. You're getting a permanent, almost permanent, depending on your recharge rate. But as long as your recharge is in 10 seconds, which is how long the enhancement lasts, as long as your recharge isn't 10 seconds, then you should be good. And if it's 10 seconds, you probably have like 1% haste. If you've got 1% haste, you're playing the chamois wrong. So you can essentially always have that buff up, even when you double press it, because if you double use it, okay, the buff doesn't stack, but again though, by the time the buff is half gone, you're ready to use another charge. So you will always have that 5% up, and 5% may not seem like a lot, but it can mean the difference. So you want to use Boulder Fist instead of Rockbiter. Oh, and not even to mention that Boulder Fist gives you more Maelstrom than Rockbiter does. Let me switch here. Switch to Hot Hands. Let's see, where's Rockbiter now? Where's Rockbiter? There it is. Rockbiter only generates 15. It does less damage. It only generates 15, so you're not getting good benefits from it. Less damage, generates less Maelstrom, and you're not getting that 5% crit and 5% damage, so it's definitely not as good of an option. Definitely want to get Boulder Fist. For level 30, this one is completely up to you. Rainfall, I feel, does not heal you enough to become useful, but if you really want to use it, you can. Feral Lunge is a pretty decent one. You can lunge at your enemy from 8 to 25 yards. You can't be too close. You have to be between 8 to 25, which is not a huge amount of range, but it lets you lunge at them biting, dealing a tiny amount of physical damage, not nature damage, so keep in mind that will not benefit from your mastery. So it's physical damage, so it's just a little bit of damage, and it's a long cooldown, so I don't like it that much. It is still decent, but I don't like it. I prefer Windrush Totem. Summons a totem for 15 seconds, and you get 60% movement speed while you're in it, and it'll just keep refreshing until the totem expires. So this is really good for raids because you can throw it down and you and all your allies will run faster, so if you need to get out of the area, just plop that totem down and you're good to go. For 45, this one completely is up to you guys. I am terrible with these totems. A lot of people say that this one is the best. Some people even say Earth Grab is the best. Earth Grab, it was probably best for PvP, but for PvE, I'm not sure, to be completely honest. I just go with Voodoo Totem, but I never even use the damn thing, so I'm not really sure. 45 isn't that important anyway. Now this is where it starts getting interesting, is 60 and onward. Lightning Shield, no. Completely irrelevant. It doesn't do nowhere near as much damage as it should. Well, not should, but it doesn't do as much as these ones should do, so you don't want it. The second one is Ancestral Swiftness, and this one is the one I like, and I'm going to tell you why. 10% haste is a pretty big number, and you might think to yourself, well, haste isn't that important, it just increases your attack speed. No, haste has some hidden benefits that I didn't know about. You guys might already know, but I was a dumbass and I didn't quite know. Haste also increases your Maelstrom regeneration, or generation. It increases your global cooldowns, so you're able to hit more abilities quickly in a short amount of time. And it makes you proc more. So those Stormbringers and Wind Furies and all that you're trying to get are going to proc a lot more. Oh, and it also reduces recharges, so you'll be able to recharge your Boulder Fist more. So you get many, many benefits from having more haste. The other one is Hailstorm. Now the funny thing is, Icy Veins, the website most people go to for build guides, says that Hailstorm is the best out of all of these, and I completely disagree. I have no idea why they would suggest this. The amount of damage you get from Hailstorm is nowhere in comparison to what you'd get from Ancestral Swiftness because of the extra procs, the extra Maelstrom regeneration, the extra attack speed alone. Why they would say to use Hailstorm, I don't know. But basically, if you guys are wondering what Hailstorm does, let me get some generation here. It just basically makes your melee attacks do a little bit of extra damage, just like Flame Tongue. So basically, it's like double Flame Tongue, which can be useful. It does increase your DPS slowly, but nowhere near the amount that Haste would. You see, now my Haste is about 5% less. Don't use Hailstorm. Trust me, it's not worth it. For level 75, there are two options for this. Two are very good, but I like one of them. Tempest is the one I use. Basically, it makes your Stormbringer now affect your next two Storm Strikes. Stormbringer gives your main hand attacks a chance to reset the cooldown on Storm Strike and cause your next Storm Strike to cost 50% less Maelstrom and trigger no cooldown. So if you add this, it's your next two Storm Strikes. So basically, if you're DPSing and you used your Storm Strike, you get one out of the way. You just did however much damage yours does. Bam, it procs. That's two more Storm Strikes at half cost you can use, and it doesn't trigger the cooldown, so you should be able to use it a fourth time once it's off cooldown. So you can get about 4 off in short succession, sometimes even like 6 or 8. I've been lucky enough to where it procs like 2 times in a row, and I got like 8 Storm Strikes off, and that's a lot of DPS, especially if you get lucky and they crit. So you really should go for Tempest. But there is another option that's not terrible either, but it's more for raids and dungeons, and it's Empowered Storm Lash. Storm Lash is when your weapons are enhanced, meaning this anything that enhances them and makes them do something basically will make Stormlash sometimes proc. And what it does is it will chain lightning between you and 2 other party members, 3 party members if you have this, and will cause you and those party members to each do additional nature damage on each of your casts. So basically it's like adding Flame Tongue to your weapons. You'll do extra damage when you're attacking, but this can only proc for you and your teammates in a group or in a raid. I do believe it might be able to proc for you solo. I think I have actually seen the buff up in my bar before. I'd have to test it to find out, but regardless, even when you're by yourself, the amount of damage you get from it is nowhere near as much damage as you would get if you could use 2 Storm Strikes. Keep in mind, you're comparing 2 Storm Strikes to just a little bit of extra nature damage every time you attack. Now, granted, the talent does also increase the damage by 35%. It's still not all that impressive. However, if you are a heavy raider, it could be an option. It could be. I still vote for Tempest, but it's completely up to you guys which one you want to go for. Test them out, see which one gives you more damage and which one you like. If you have the right build, and you have the right amount of mastery and the right amount of haste, which we'll get into that, but if you have the right amount, your Stormbringer will proc a lot, and then you should not need Tempest. You won't need 2 Storm Strike, because if it's procking a lot, then only 1 Storm Strike should be good enough before it procs again. But that's only if you have the right stats. If you don't have the right stats, I would go for Stormbringer and get those double procs. Now for level 90, this one is pretty much a no-brainer, and I use Crash Lightning. Whenever you use Crash Lightning, it leaves behind an AoE. I'll show you here. It leaves behind an AoE that continuously does damage. You can see the damage there. It's actually quite a lot of damage. It does it pretty quickly too. Like, it hits pretty fast. You can see the 2,700 and the 2,300 is from the Crash Lightning, and it does it pretty quickly. It's really good. And that's if you have a lot of enemies. So say you have like a big group of enemies, you're going to want to use that, because not only will it now do damage over time, but Crash Lightning is extremely important for group enemies anyway, because if you read it, when you electrocute all enemies in front of you, you deal nature damage to them, and then obviously if you hit 2 or more targets, it enhances your weapons, which enhancing your weapons goes back to Stormlash, give you a better chance for that if you're with a group, or just give it to yourself. Enhancing your weapons with nature and everything, which gives your Storm Strike and Lava Lash a chance to spread to multiple enemies. So basically, if you've got like a big group of like 5 to 10 enemies on you, you can use Crash Lightning and then use your Storm Strike or your Lava Lash, and it'll spread to the nearby enemies, doing damage to them, and it's extremely good for bursting down groups. There's the Stormbringer. Boom. Boom. Awesome. Love it. So I would go with Crashing Storm. Fury of Air is not very good because it costs your Maelstrom, and a lot of it. It costs 5 Maelstrom plus 5 per second, and the damage is just not worth it. I'm not gonna lie, I've never even tried it, but I can just tell by the damage alone it's not worth it. I mean, 5,000 damage every 1 second at the cost of 5 Maelstrom. So that would be 20,000 if you let it go for 4 seconds, and that would cost you 20 Maelstrom. But 20 Maelstrom with the Stormbringer proc will give you 1 Storm Strike, which will give you 90,000 or even more if you're higher level and geared. So the amount of damage you get from Fury of Air doesn't even match the amount that you could get from like a Storm Strike or something. But if you want to compare it talent-wise, say a 4-second Fury of Air would cost you 20 Maelstrom. That's how much Crash Lightning costs. Crash Lightning gives you 15,000 damage when it hits, and then an extra 14,000 over 6 seconds. Again, remember, these numbers are based on your gear and your levels, but the point is, you get a flat damage for hitting it, and then you get more damage over time if you use this perk, versus, and that's a one flat cost of 20 Maelstrom too, versus this costs your Maelstrom every second for so many seconds and only does minuscule damage. It does slow people, so this could be an option in PvP, because not a lot of people are going to stand still in your Crash Lightning. But I'm mostly focusing you guys for PvE right now. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the video, but I do not PvP much, so these talents might not all be that amazing for PvP. However, I'm mentioning that as I go. Like I said, Feral Lunge could be a better option for PvP. Earth Grab Totem could be a better option for PvP. So I would go for Crash Lightning, and then the other one is just, no, it's Sundering costs a fuck ton of Maelstrom. That right there is a Storm Strike and a Lava Lash, pretty much. If you've got the Stormbringer proc, that's a Storm Strike and a Lava Lash, or 2 Storm Strikes, or even 3 if you can get the proc to hit twice. The amount of Maelstrom that costs is just ridiculous. The damage is okay, but the cooldown, oh god, the cooldown, no. You do not want cooldown abilities, especially long ones like that. And then level 100 is where a lot of the debate comes in. Well, it might not be a lot of debate for some people, but it was a debate between me and my friend for a while there. He said that Earth and Spike was the best because you're doing a lot of damage, and then it increases your physical damage and nature damage you deal to the target by 15% for 10 seconds. And it only has a 20-second cooldown. So essentially, every 20 seconds, for 10 of those seconds, you're doing a 15% extra damage to the target. And it's not a terrible option, but it costs Maelstrom. You guys gotta remember that with the Enhancement Shaman, you are really wanting to micromanage your Maelstrom. It is one of the most key things. You want to keep it managed and under control. And when you do have Maelstrom, you want to use it on your Storm Strikes when they're procced and whenever they're on cooldown, and your Lava Lashes if you have an excess amount of Maelstrom left over. Or if you're about to die, you can use it to make your Healing Surges instant cast. You do not want to be spending it on abilities like Earth and Spike and Sundering. Sure, they do a decent amount of damage. Sure, they're not terrible. At least Earth and Spike isn't. Sundering is kind of terrible. But the amount of Maelstrom they cost will make or break your rotation and cause you to have to wait a long time before you can use another ability. Because if you've got no Maelstrom, you can't use any abilities. If you've got no Maelstrom and your Boulder Fist is not ready for you to be used, you're essentially using nothing. If you've got no Maelstrom, you can't use Storm Strike, you can't use Lava Lash. If Flame Tongue is off cooldown, or on cooldown, I mean, you won't be able to use that as a 10-second cooldown. Boulder Fist, if you've got no charges ready, which it does recharge pretty quick, but say you don't have any, you're going to be left auto-attacking, and you really don't want that to happen. It does happen on occasion. I found myself auto-attacking here and there, but you really want to try to avoid auto-attacking if you can. That's with any class, really, but you definitely want to try to avoid it with the Chamois because you're burst damage, so you really don't want to be auto-attacking. So I like to go for Landslide. Boulder Fist or Rock Biter, whichever you're using, but you really should be using Boulder Fist, as I said, now enhances your weapon, increasing your agility by 8% for 10 seconds. And like I said, since you're using Boulder Fist essentially every 4.67 seconds, or however long your recharge is, should be around 5 seconds, you're going to be getting not only the 5% damage increase and the 5% crit strike chance, but you're getting an 8% increase to your main damage stat. I mean, that increases your damage, that's agility, that's your main damage stat, by 8% for 10 seconds. You can always have that up. It will never expire. So that is a solid permanent increase to your overall damage. Between Boulder Fist and Landslide, like I said, those are permanent damage buffs that you're giving yourself. And all you have to do is select the talent. Lastly, I know I went backwards on this tree, but lastly is Ascendance, and I just wouldn't choose it. Ascendance is just lame. The long cooldown isn't worth it. You do gain... oh, it only lost 15 seconds too, so that's no good. You do get 10 Maelstrom per second, which is okay, but it's not as good. And it transforms your auto attack and Storm Strike into wind attacks, which bypass armor and have a 30-yard range. This, I would say, would be your PvP. If you're PvPing a lot, this would be it, because you're going to cut through their armor and you can attack from a long distance. But that's only every 3 minutes. I would not use it at all. I would still go for Landslide. But if you're a really heavy PvPer, Ascendance could be your goal. Lastly, well, not 100% lastly, but we'll go over your stats and abilities, and then we'll pretty much be done with this guy. Critical Strike not as important as your haste and mastery. If you have crit, that's good. Crit's always good, but it is not the ones you want to focus on. The most you want to focus on is mastery and haste. For mastery, you want to have this higher than your haste, but you don't want to have your haste too far behind. You can see that I have 50% mastery and almost 30% haste. That's not bad. That's a pretty good amount. That means that the haste is only essentially 20%. It's actually 21 in my case, but it's only around 20% less than your mastery. That's what you want. You do want your mastery higher than your haste because it's the most important, and we'll get into why, but haste is just as important too. So you can't have them both equal, I don't think. You have to do a lot of different gear finding to accomplish that, but I would just stick with making your mastery more. And the reason is, your mastery increases your Stormbringer and Wind Fury chances by an additional 3.10%, or it depends on your skill. But basically, your Wind Fury is a big portion of your damage. Wind Fury, each of your main hand attacks has a blank percentage, again increased by mastery, to trigger 2 extra attacks, dealing extra physical damage. So it's essentially giving you free attacks, and you don't have to do anything to get it. It just happens. Well, it does say main hand attacks though, so I do not think that it works with Lava Lash, but that doesn't matter. And now, the reason that Wind Fury is so good, you might think, well, it doesn't really sound that good to me. It's only a small amount, and it's physical damage, it's not nature damage, so why is it so good, Onion? Because the Enhancement Shaman's artifact ability gives you an ability that causes all auto attacks to trigger Wind Fury, increasing damage dealt by Wind Fury for 200% for 6 seconds. So whatever damage this does, multiply that by 200%, and that's what you're going to be doing. It is massive damage. It's very high. I have bursted down a lot of huge elites in Legion, or in the Broken Isles, using this ability, or this ability I should say, but Wind Fury, and it is really, really strong. Now, it's not as strong as, say, like your Storm Strikes or your Boulder Fists or whatever, but it is still a really good ability. But that is not the only reason you want to focus on mastery. Wind Fury is not everything. Another reason you really want to focus on mastery is because it increases your Fire, Frost, and Nature damage, which is pretty much all your abilities unless they do physical damage. But if they do Fire, Frost, or Nature damage, it's going to increase that by a percentage of your mastery. So I have 50% mastery, so I do almost an extra 50% damage to all 3 of those, which is incredible. So that means that your Boulder Fist, your Boulder Fist is Nature, it's increased by it. Flame Tongue is Fire, it's increased. Storm Strike is oh wait, nope. Storm Strike is physical. I thought Storm Strike was nature. It's not. Okay, well, Storm Strike is physical, so it's not increased by your mastery, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter because it's still really, really strong. Lava Lash is fire, obviously. I did I'm double checking now though, because I wanted to make sure. I didn't actually know Storm Strike was physical. And then this one would be Frost. This is nature. I don't know, do they do a certain... No, they just do their own damage. They don't do a certain amount of damage. And then Lightning Bolt, if you use it, I just use it to pull stuff, does nature. So pretty much everything but Storm Strike is increased by your mastery. And it doesn't matter that Storm Strike isn't, because it already does a massive amount of damage, so don't worry about that. Don't think that, oh, Storm Strike doesn't count, I'm not going to use it, that's poo damage. It's a lot of damage, you want it, trust me. And then right behind that is Haste. And the reason I told you guys already that you want your Haste is because it increases your global cooldown, or reduces your global cooldowns, and increases your Maelstrom regeneration, increases your attack speed, and increases the chance for your procs. So it'll increase the chance for Wind Fury, Storm Lash, and Stormbringer all to proc, and which obviously increases your damage. If you don't believe me on that, then test it out. Put on Hailstorm, put on Ancestral Swiftness, check them back and forth. Try doing DPS bursting on a target with the swiftness on, and then try it without it. You'll notice you won't get as many procs. So that is why I highly recommend you have a decent amount of haste. I actually wish I had more. I wish my crit was lower and my haste was higher, but I'm working on it. I'm still leveling up, so I'm just putting on whatever gear is pretty much better at this rate. And lastly, we're going to go over the abilities, which is pretty obvious. I mean, I already showed them to you guys. Boulder Fist, you want to be using all the time. Flame Tongue, Storm Strike, Lava Lash, Frostband. I never actually use that much, but it's good for PvP or if you need to slow down an enemy. Crash Lightning, Lightning Bolt to pull, and your Spirit Wolves. Now here's the rotation. What I do when I open up a fight, I'll use Boulder Fist twice. Then I'll use Flame Tongue to get the extra damage. Then I'll use a Storm Strike. Then I'll use a Boulder Fist again. And then if no other abilities are ready yet, like if Stormbringer hasn't procced, I'll just cast a lot of Lava Lashes, because by the time you use 2 Boulder Fists and you've used these abilities, you should have a decent amount of Maelstrom saved up, so you should be able to use Lava Lash. And then as soon as your Stormbringer come up, use your Storm Strike 3 times if you have enough Maelstrom, because you'll be able to use it 3 times, and that's your most heavy hitting ability. So you want to keep that up as much as you can. All the meanwhile, if you're fighting a heavy target, you're going to want to use your Doom Winds, which is what makes the Wind Fury do so much damage. That's the swirling wind around you. You see it. And all my auto attacks are triggering it for 6 seconds, and it does a lot of damage. I like to keep using regular abilities while I'm using it, because then you're getting the regular damage and you're getting the Wind Fury damage. It says that it makes your auto attacks trigger it, but even when you're using abilities, auto attacks kind of slip their way in there anyway. So you're still gonna get the Doom Winds even if you're still casting. So you definitely still want to use it, and it's really, really good for bursting down enemies. And also, if you're bursting down enemies, you want to use Spirit Wolves, because they do a little bit of damage themselves, and they will constantly give you back a ton of Maelstrom. Every time they bite an enemy, they give you 5. And if you're using them, you can keep spamming Lava Lash and Storm Strike, because you're going to have a lot of extra Maelstrom, and you can just keep spamming and spamming and spamming, and it's going to increase your overall DPS by a significant amount. And also, if you don't want to spend your Maelstrom on your attacks, like I said, you can spend it on healing. Like if you're about to die, for 20 Maelstrom, you can make your Healing Surge a free cast. And then also, if you're fighting a group of enemies, you're definitely going to want to use Crash Lightning. As I said, Crash Lightning makes your Storm Strike and Lava Lash reach out and hit nearby enemies. So if you're fighting a big group of enemies, you're definitely going to want to throw down your Crash Lightning, do that extra damage to the target and to all targets nearby. It's really, really good for taking out targets. You would think that Chamois with their burst damage would be single target and they wouldn't be very good at taking out enemies. Well, that's wrong, because Crash Lightning makes it possible, and it's awesome. But you can see the rotation here. I'm just making sure my Flame Tongue stays up so I get that extra damage. I'm using Storm Strike whenever it's ready, and if it's not ready, then I'm using Lava Lash instead. But I would only use your Lava Lash when your Maelstrom is around above 100%. If it's not, you might want to not use it, because your Lava Lash doesn't do as much damage as your Storm Strike does, and you don't want to find yourself using up all your Maelstrom with Lava Lash, because then if a Stormbringer procs, you're not going to have any Maelstrom to use that Stormbringer proc, and then your Storm Strikes, which are your strongest attack, are going to go to waste. Now when you do have Stormbringer on, your Storm Strikes only cost 20, which is not a lot. You can have up to 150 Maelstrom. But if you find yourself using up all of your Maelstrom and you cannot use that Stormbringer proc, that's not good. Now as soon as the Stormbringer comes again, here I'll show you. It lasts like 20, or not 20, but 12 seconds. Let me find the exact number on that. It doesn't say how long it lasts. It's around 12 seconds, something like that though. So you do have time to use it, but you don't want to wait. You want to use it as soon as it's ready, because then another one could proc. It depends on your luck and your percentages how often it procs, but you don't want to leave it lingering. You want to use it as soon as it's ready, because then, like I said, not only does it give you 2 more, but it resets your cooldown, so you can essentially use 3 in a row, like I just did, if you have enough Maelstrom. That's a lot of burst damage. You see my DPS over here on the right. It's nothing super impressive compared to some of you guys, but remember though, I'm not max level yet, and I don't have the best gear. But you can see the damage numbers. I mean, they're impressive. I'm critting sometimes for like 100k, with my Storm Strikes, which is super impressive when it comes to leveling up and everything. I mean, most of the enemies don't even have 1,000,000 health yet in the Broken Isles, and some of the big bosses only have like 3 mil. If you're critting for 100k, you're gonna take them down pretty quick. Not counting, you're doing around 50k with your Boulder Fist, and you're getting a little bit of extra Flame Tongue damage in there. You're getting your Storm Lash procs, which, yes, we did just prove that they do activate solo. You're getting your Wind Fury. You're getting all this good stuff mixed in, and your damage is just going to be amazing. You'd think that chamois are burst damage, and they are, but they're not too bad when it comes to consistent damage either, thanks to Crash Lightning's damage over time, and your auto attacks, and your Flame Tongue. You know, you're doing a decent amount of damage, even if none of your abilities are ready. Lastly, I just wanted to talk to you guys about the artifacts, which is basically, for your artifacts, you really just want to use whatever is you can get your hands on, really. But there are some that you should aim for and some you shouldn't. When you're fully maxed out, which you can max out your artifacts, there's an achievement for it, you're going to have everything, right? But until you get to the point where you can max them all out, which costs a ton of artifact power, in the meantime, you want to go for the ones that are best. So, obviously, Hammer of Storms is your first one, and it's a great one. Increases your Storm Strike damage by 8%. Really good boost. Then the other ones you want to go for, which are the ones that I recommend and I use, is Gathering Storms. This one is really good. Each target hit by your Crash Lightning increases damage dealt by your next Storm Strike within 12 seconds for 6 seconds. So, each enemy hit by your Storm Strike or your Crash Lightning, so if you have like a big group of enemies and you hit them all with your Crash Lightning, increases the damage by your next Storm Strike by 12 seconds with 6 seconds. I don't know if that stacks. It does say each target hit, so I think it stacks, but I've not paid attention to my buffs when that one actually happens, so I do apologize for that. I don't know if that one stacks. But if it does, that could be a massive amount of damage when you Storm Strike a huge group. Crash Lightning them, then Storm Strike them, that's a lot of damage. Even if it doesn't stack, that's still 6%. That's an extra 6% increase to your best ability. The other one is Wind Strikes. This one is less useful. I'll probably not put as many points into it down the road. It's just basically what I've got my hands on so far. When Stormbringer resets, the remaining cooldown on Storm Strike, which basically means when Stormbringer procs, which makes your 2 Storm Strikes available, when that procs, you gain attack speed for 3 seconds. The attack speed is based on the charges. It's 10% per charge, or per rank. I have 5 ranks, so that gives me 50% attack speed for 3 seconds. That's 50% additional haste for 3 seconds. That is amazing for when it comes to using some of these other abilities, and it can also stack with Doom Winds. If that procs, and then I use Doom Winds, that extra attack speed is going to really stack up with Doom Winds, because remember, Doom Winds makes your auto attacks trigger Wind Fury and do more damage. So mix attack speed with your Doom Winds, and you're going to be doing an insane amount of damage. And then the one in the middle increases your Wind Fury damage. This one is not so great, but it is good. Wind Fury, like I said, is good damage. It's just not the best damage. However, it is still a good one. As I said, though, you're going to have all of these at some point. But in the meantime, you want to not waste your points on the bad ones. I would kind of count this one as a bad one. Like, it's not the best, but it's also not the worst. The one that I would call the worst in the low section is this one. Boulder Fist generates an additional 1 Maelstrom. 500 artifact power is not worth that. 1 additional Maelstrom. 1 Maelstrom. That is not worth it at all. It generates 25 already, so it already generates a massive amount. Why would you want 1 more? And if you rank it up 3 times, it just gives you 3 more. That's not worth it, guys. Do not spec into this. It costs way too many points, or way too much artifact power on when you could be putting those points into something way stronger. Now, I don't have anything else on locked yet, but basically, you just want to go for things that sound good for the rotation I've given you. If it sounds good, get it. This one's pretty good. If you solo content, you want to heal yourself. This one's good. I mean, that'll make your storm strikes do more damage or have a chance to strike again for about almost half the damage, and it can chain off itself, so that's pretty good. Of course, the more times it chains, the less damage it'll do, but that's still awesome. This one's pretty good. I mean, Lava Lash isn't your main ability, but it is a very strong one. And then this one, I can't wait to get. This one's awesome. When you Lava Lash, you spawn a freaking fiery tornado around you that, or not around you, but around where you Lava Lash, that does damage over 3 seconds to enemies within 3 yards. That's pretty damn cool. This one's cool too. It makes your feral spirits, which is what you're using when you burst and stuff, it makes them either fire, frost, or lightning, granting them an extra ability, which is freaking sick. I can't imagine having like fire or lightning dogs. This is good because when you use your defensive cooldown, it heals you. This one is amazing. I can't wait for that. When Stormbringer resets the remaining cooldown on Storm Strike, it increases the damage dealt by the Storm Strike. That's amazing. That basically means that when your Stormbringer procs, Storm Strike's going to do a quarter more damage. That's pretty amazing. This one is not so amazing. When you're in combat with your Ghost Wolf, you generate Maelstrom every 2 seconds. That, I would say, is if you're like super desperate to get some Maelstrom, you could use it, but other than that, you're not going to want it because you have to auto attack when you're in wolf form. So yeah. And then this one is pretty awesome too. I mean, all the elite ones are pretty awesome, but that's why, because they cost on a lot and you have to wait to get them. I mean, you have to go all the way through these trees to get them. They're like the last abilities you get, but they're all pretty awesome. There's no really terrible abilities. Some of them aren't that great. This one I would say is the absolute worst, but you know, none of them are super terrible, so just pick and choose what you get as you go. But I'm pretty much done here. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it was a long one. If anybody's new to my channel and you enjoy this kind of content, you want help playing classes in Legion because some of them are confusing, or you just don't know what to do, or maybe you were just looking for some tips. I normally don't make videos like this, but I would definitely be glad to make another one. I am pretty good with the Affliction Warlock as well. So if you guys want an Affliction Warlock guide, let me know and I will do it. Thank you guys for watching. I've been Onion Rings. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later. Peace.